Hello and welcome to the Battle and Barrow and another terrain building video. In this I'm going to be making a gatehouse with opening and closing doors and a wall section for a Warhammer fantasy roleplay adventure where I need a coaching in with a outer wall. I'm just going to make the front part of the wall. You could of course expand this over going all the way around, but it's just a real quick easy terrain project to get a gatehouse and walls made. So yeah, let's get on with the craft. The actual main gatehouse is going to be made from some foam board. I am using a bit of scrap foam board here just to reuse some bits and pieces. And a while back I made a sort of stagecoach, so I'm going to use that. So I want it to look like that could fit through this gatehouse. So I'm using that just to work out some size dimensions here, which I'll then tidy up and we're going to cut out. The front wall will be lower than the rest, so it'll be a bit of a slope on the roof. So that's what you see me doing here. And so with that done, I can use that cut out the door and use that to cut out the back wall door as well. So that the archway through will be the same size. And because of this, the side walls will have a slope to them because the back will be higher. I do later on, I decided the side walls are too wide, so I will cut it down later on. Taking an offcut of the door that I've cut in half, I can use this to trace around onto some 1mm chipboard, and these will actually be the doors themselves. So I can trace around two of these and cut them out. Once they're cut out, we can texture it using a sculpting tool. Just going to put some deep scores down for planks and some light scratches down for wood grain. This was didn't really need to do in the end. I was going to sort of age and scuff up the bottom of the door, but you'll see in the next step I decided to do something else. What I want to do is use some of this cereal box card, and I'm going to sort of put some metal banding around the door. So I'm going to trace around the door around the outside and then come in inside and sort of copy around the shape of it, but make it about 2mm or mil less. But I'm also going to add a bit of detail work on some sort of just nice metal work just to give it a bit of visual interest, and I'll cut that out with a knife for ease. It takes a while, but I'll cut it out and we can glue those into place like so. There's no complexity here, I just put a bit of glue on my finger for ease. If I remember to open the glue first, just rub that around the back of the cereal box card and then stick it into place. And for hinges, the cereal box has this sort of flappy bit that's already like a hinge, so I can use that as my hinge, and my cat here is doing his best to assist. And now I've got the hinges cut out. I'm just working out whether I want the doors to open inwards or outwards. I decide upon inwards. And so we can glue the hinges in place. And now we can begin assembling it. But now, this is the stage where I decide that the walls are too high, so I cut them. So I'm just working out how wide I actually want to make. You can see the roughness here, the actual foam I'm using. It really doesn't matter because this is off cut. We're going to do a heavy painting over it to give it a bit of texture anyway, so this all actually does add to that because it wants to be some wattle and daub texture, so it just adds into it. So not too fast, but yeah, I'm just going to trim these down for a bit, which does mean the back wall won't need to be as high, so I have to trim that down. But yeah, just get you. Sometimes this happens, you sort of decide on something and then change your mind halfway through a project. What I am going to decide to do, but I think this is a pointless step, but just in case you see the next step, I decided now to paint this innermost part of the hinge, but it didn't really need to be done. It's easy enough to paint when it's all assembled anyway, but ho hum. We can now assemble it, gluing the hinges in and then gluing all the wall pieces together. And I wish I had a thought about the next step before I started doing this, but yeah, we're just going to glue it all together. And it's this, I really wish I wanted to, once I glued it all together, it just looked weird with the doors open, you could see sort of through. So I decided to put like a card arch in on the inside. This would have been way easier if I'd have thought about this sooner, but ho hum, that's what I'm just doing now, getting this cereal box card arch on the inside, fiddling around just so it looks better when the gate doors are open. And with that all done, I can come in with some coffee stirrers that cut size and glue these in as wooden timber plankings, just pretty much the same as my modular houses. Card on the top there for just for the roof part of it, and we're going to come in now and tile it using the old. You can use some tiles I've shown on Fisherman's Fiend that are pre sort of laser cut for you, or you can just go the old method here of just using a bit of thin card, cut into strips and add some sort of shingle tiles cuts into them like this. Luckily there's not too many to do, so it's not like a big house or anything, so it doesn't take too long. And with this it's almost done. So once the doors are closed it looks alright, but sometimes I'm going to want them open, but they don't sort of stay open, they pop back. So I decided that I was going to magnetise the doors so they can sort of be opened. So what I'm going to do this is use 2 magnets per door. One magnet will be attached to the door, the second magnet will be attached to the back of the wall. So the easiest way to do this is just to glue in where I want the magnet to be, and I figured if I leave it here at this height it will look like some sort of like where a bar can go across it to lock it. So what I needed to do here as well, unfortunately, was put a spacer in. So that's what I'm doing here, gluing the spacer to that, and then I'll put some glue onto the spacer and open the door and glue it into place. But if you had thought ahead again, this would have been easier. So yeah, here I am. Once the glue's dried on that part, I can put some glue on the spacer wedge bit, open the door, hold that in place. So if all goes to plan, the magnets will stay in place, the spacer will stay in place, and the door will be able to be magnetised shut, or magnetised open I should say, which does happen. It works rather well in the end. It works really well. Just going to add some extra glue in places now it's all set, just to really hold it in place. And with that, that's the gatehouse done. Like, you can open them and they'll be magnetised open, and they should be able to be shut really easy, relatively easy. So yeah, that's it. Onto the walls. The walls are just going to be made from some XPS foam. They're going to be made from 6mm foam that are going to have 2 bits cut together to make it 12mm, and the back bit's going to be slightly higher than the front bit because I want a sloping part at the top here, and they're about 6 inches wide. And next, first up, I'm going to add texture to the front piece and the back piece, and I'm going to use texture roller for this, pushing down nice and hard to get that texture through. You can of course scribe these in by hand if you like. Once that's done, I can add some glue and glue these pieces together, making sure both textured parts are facing outwards. At the front I can come in with a chipboard and just stick it on the front. This will be like the tiled part, and rather than do it individually I can stick a long strip in like this and come in and score the tiles in, and of course this tidies up the fact that it's 2 bits of different sized foam put together, and looks surprisingly well in the end. I need a way to get these walls to stand up. They can, on a perfectly flat even surface, they kind of stand up, but you know, these could be put onto grass and they knock over really easy. So what I'm going to do is have some buttresses, one on the front at one side and one on the back on the other side, and that should make it nice and stable. So I'm making a little jig here, a little template that I can cut out and use that to trace around on some thicker foam. And for this I'm using some packaging that I got from the Dungeon Minister last year, because this is nice. It's about 12, it's really nice and thick. So yeah, UK here's my 10mm foam, and it's will be available, but it's slightly thicker than that, so this will be great. So I'm hoping I've got enough here, which, spoilers, I do. So I'm just going to trace through these, use my hot wire cutter to cut them out. I really do need to get a proper prox on. I think this beast was something from eBay, nice and cheap. It's served me well, but I think it's time to upgrade this year. So later on this year I think I might treat myself to a Proxon. I say treat myself, I have to save up and beg the wife to let me spend the money on one. And these, likewise, like the walls themselves, just get a texture in on the sides. And I try and do the front part. I realise I've done it wrong there, the wrong way, but it's still a bit of a texture anyway. And then we'll add some tiles to the angled parts. And now these just get glued into place. As I said, there's going to be one on the front on that side and then one on the back here. And so this will hold it in place so it won't fall over front or back. So just going to glue these in. And yeah, I'm just using a set square here to make sure that they are going to be at right angles, you know, to the floor. So I'm trying to do this properly rather than my usual slash hack job. It's still a slash hack job. And so yeah, with the gatehouse here and a few walls, you can sort of see how this works. I think in the end I make 4 walls. Just that's what I decided I'd need for the setup. So we're on to the painting. You could watch my modular house painting guide, but since then I've sort of repainted them to match sort of this. It's very similar, but it just makes it easier. I think I went over the top on the grime on my houses, so it's just a case of painting everything in a sort of burnt umber, including the walls. The walls themselves I won't go over too much. They're just painted out in my sort of realistic stone video, so it's just the same method as that. But the tiles get a they're going to be sort of terracotta in colour, sort of like a Tudor house, so they get base coated in the burnt umber. And what I do for now is I'm using this ivory craft paint that I use for the stone colour for the walls. But this is also going to be the base colour for the wattle and daub part, you know, the plaster part of the houses. And at first I go in with this brush and decide this is far too big. I then use a much more sensible brush and do it properly, but I paint really heavy so it's got a texture to it. Then next up I get another blob of it, mix in some white just to paint around in the middle with an old brush. Anything you do get on the beams you can go over with that burnt umber, but again putting this on really heavy and concentrating on the middle parts, and then just giving it another extra white paint, like a mixture of white, and go even lighter just for the center parts. Again, nice and heavy. You get a nice cool plaster effect without you having to do anything else beforehand. I've tried doing glue in, plaster itself in, but at this scale this works really well, just thick paint drying. So 3 layers of thick dollopy paint. So no 2 thin coats for miniature painters. These are 3 thick coats, and this works really well. My modular houses, any houses I'd probably leave here and let, you know, more upmarket houses, I probably won't even do that much weathering. The actual shading, 3 colours itself does the weathering. But as this is on a roadside sort of dusty road, we're going to grime it up ever so slightly, not as much as I've done in the past, but ever so slightly. The door gets a dry brushing of a taupe colour. The metalwork will get a coating of this chainmail and then a wash in armour wash. The tiles at this stage get a get coated in this sort of dark flesh from Vallejo, and the weathering is just a little sort of light wash of this. Sort of dries lighter. It's a wash in this brown, and I'm concentrating on the sides and dripping down from underneath the roof. And then get this old sort of camo green colour. It's dried. Most people would throw this away, but it's perfect for this. Just like light brushing some moss and mould in places. The roof gets washed in a homemade black wash. Okay, and the beams, I've decided midpoint of doing this, and I've redone all my other houses. I kind of like the dark black beams you get in Tudor houses, especially where I live. It just seems to be that's how they are. So the brown undercoat is very important, I feel, because this is watered down black acrylic paint. So some of that brown does sort of show through. It's not like a perfect black. So having a brown undercoat and then painting down a very thin down black over it, it works really well for the beams. All that's left to do is to add some moss to the roof. For this it's just various brown and green flocks and yellow flocks. Add a bit of a PVA too, add some flocks, mix them up, and I find better just to get in with your finger and apply it. You end up with a stained finger that you have to wash afterwards, but I just find this is the best method to apply it. So come with your finger and just sort of scrape it upwards so it gets in all the the sort of gaps and stuff for the tiles. And yeah, allow that to dry, and that is it for the build. We'll have a reveal in a minute, but before we have a look at that, thank you for taking time to watch. Have a comment, have a like, share this video around, that'd be great. You know, that's YouTube stuff. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do. Yeah, I like doing builds. It's a channel where I do builds and I show them off in actual play videos, so it's kind of like an all-in-one package. But yeah, that's it for this one, guys. Until the next one, stay safe, take care, bye bye.